Hey, so we are outside my house today because it's a beautiful morning and an even beautiful morning to review books and talk about more books. So why not? Actually, it was my mom's idea. She said that it would look really good if I just recorded outside our house. So here I am with more books to review. You might hear cars going by, people talking, because my house is not that far from the actual highway. So yeah, you have to bear with me with this one. But today is a fun one. I read some good books this month. So yeah, let's just talk about them. So last month I read 4 books, but this month I was just able to read only 3 of them. I mean, I know some of you would be like, 3, that's so little, I can do so many. Yeah, fuck you, man. I don't care. I hate this kind of trend that is going on that you have to read more and more books. I just want to read more and I want to read comfortably. I don't want to have it on my head that I have to read a certain amount of books a month. And you shouldn't too. You should read at your own pace. And even if you can read 1 book a year, that is more than enough in most cases. So yeah, just read at your own pace. The 3 books I read this month. The audio might go a little bad here. So the 3 books that I read this month are these 3. Um, 2 of them are by Albert Camus, and one of them is from George Orwell. In the end of the last video, I mentioned these books, and I don't know if some of you read with me or if none of you read with me. To be fair, again, I don't really have many subscribers that would read with me, so that's fine. All the books I read this month, all the 3 I read this month, and the 3 I'm going to read in March are all recommended to me by my good friend Essen. You should check him out. He's a really good photographer. I will put his link in the description. The thing about me is I really like reading books on recommendations. I think it's really fun. I not only get to know a little bit of about the person who recommended me those books. Oh, sorry. Let's wait for the car to pass. It's actually my first ever time trying to record outside, so it's pretty weird. Everyone is giving me very weird looks. But we'll continue. I really like reading books on recommendations. I usually only read books on recommendations because it doesn't only give me a sneak peek in that person's thoughts, but it's also always interesting because no one person recommends you the same book. Or if I ask someone what is their favorite book, almost always none of them are ever same, and it's very interesting. I get to read a lot of different stuff because I read on other people's recommendations and what kind of stuff other people like to read. But yeah, I'm just blabbering on, and I think we should just start. So, the first book I read this month, we'll just go by in the order I read them in. The first book I read this month was this one. I don't know if you can see it because of the brightness of the camera and video, but it's The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. This book fucking threw me for a loop, man, because going into this, when I heard the name, The Myth of Sisyphus, I didn't really know what to think about it or what the book was gonna be. I don't really research books before I read them. I just like to get into them and see and figure out what kind of books they are. So going into this, I didn't even know this was philosophical. And I liked whenever I'm reading, I like to have a pen with me, and the things I like in the book, I like to mark. And many people do that. But when I started reading this book, and I had a pen with me, I was almost marking everything because it is just so well written. Basically, what this book is about, I won't give you any spoilers if you want to read it yourself. And I think you really should read this book. Oh my god. I think you really should read this book yourself. It is amazing. It talks about the absurdity of human mind and how we are so absurd, and the concepts we surround ourselves with are so absurd in our humanity and in our social society. And it's such a fun book to read. You might or might not recognize the line, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." It is really memed around the internet and especially on Reddit. And this book is where that line comes, where that lines this book is where that line comes from. So that line, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy," I really like it. that had been my desktop wallpaper on my PC and my mobile phone for the longest time. It still is. I will show you later if I can. It still is my desktop and like mobile wallpaper. And I didn't know it came from this book. That's how much I don't research books. And while reading it, I went halfway through and it was talking about the same things, and it just clicked in my head. I was like, it is called the myth of Sisyphus, and that is also like talks about Sisyphus. And then I looked at the wallpaper, and under the quote it said Albert Camus, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. I have been reading that book. And yeah, this book is absolutely amazing. The Theory of Absurd by Albert Camus, and how well written it is. Not only that, I really love how the writer, how Albert Camus doesn't only tell you about his perspective, he looks at the Theory of Absurd, and when you are reading this book, you really feel like that you are there with him. When you are writing this book, you are there with him, trying to figure out what he's talking about. He doesn't know it himself, but you figure it out together throughout this book, and it's really fun. I really loved reading about his philosophy and the way he writes. One little gripe I do have about this book is how hardly it was written, with like really tough English. Like, I don't mind that because I have been reading books for a long time and I don't really mind tough English. But one thing, as I mentioned in my previous book review as well, that one thing I really appreciate in writers and art in general is the concept of simplicity, of explaining difficult topics in very simple words. And if you are reading this book, don't expect it to do that. It won't give you anything on a platter, and you will have to figure it out, because it doesn't really explain anything in very simple words. The words it uses, to some people it may be simple, but to many will be very complicated, and it might even be a very hard book to read. Even when I started this book, like halfway through, or like maybe 10 pages in, I was thinking, oh my god, this is so like, I don't have the word for it, but it's so hardly written. That's probably not the right word, but yeah, it was a very tough read at first, and I really had to get used to the style of Albert Camus and how he portrays stuff. But after a while, I did get used to it, and through and through, I really like the book. I mean, if I show you the book from the inside, I mean, you won't really be able to see it, but I have marked this book out the wazoo. Like, I think there is not a single page in this book that like I haven't marked. I think I'll maybe do this in most books, and when I'm reviewing a book, I'll give you a quote from the book that I really like. So in this book, the quote I really liked by Albert Camus was this one: "What more ghastly image can be called up than that of a man betrayed by his own body, who simply because he did not die in time lives out the comedy while awaiting the end, face to face with that God he does not adore, serving him as he served life, kneeling before a void and arms outstretched towards a heaven without eloquence that he knows to be also without depth." When I read this, or even when I still read it, it gives me shivers. It's such a beautifully written line. To recommend this book, I won't really recommend it to new readers, or maybe like intermediate readers. I won't really call myself an expert reader as well. I'm not really saying you can't read this book, or this is too intellectually high level for you, but that's not my point. The thing is, it's just very hardly written, so you might have a hard time and you might not like it for those reasons. If you're completely fine with that, do give it a try, because I really like this book. And for the tier list, I almost forgot that I'm actually doing a tier list of these books. For the little tier list, I would definitely put it in S tier, but because of that one thing of like it not being that simple or easy to read for many people, because I'm trying to look at these books from like a broader perspective, I'll give it A tier. So for the second book I read this month, this is a really fun one. I read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and oh my god, I love this book. I love this book so much. It was so fun. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I read it in only 2 days. I don't usually do that. I don't really like do sessions where I just read books in 1 day or 2 days. I really like to take my time with them. But I enjoyed this so much that I just completely blasted through it, and I was reading it for most of my time. I read really, really slowly. And yeah, this was so much fun. This book, now, if you are a kid and if you read this book, it will be just a really, really enjoyable book for you. Like, extremely enjoyable. It's so fun and surprising that I actually almost don't want to tell you like what it is about, but it's a review. It won't be a review if I don't tell you anything about the book. So if you don't, if like, just go read this book, and if you do, if you don't plan to read it, keep watching this video. But if you plan to read it, just go read it before listening to me at all. So this book is about talking animals, and this book is basically a political commentary on like modern day politics. Not even modern day, because this book was written way back in the day, but it still holds up. But the fun thing about this book is it's not really like self-aware. It doesn't try to be self-aware. It just goes on doing its own thing, and it never once tells you that it's about political commentary. But again, as I said, if you read it as a child, you will just read it as a normal fantasy story about talking animals. But if you read this as an adult, the what's the right word for it, the naming convention that this book uses are so fun, and like are so well done. They point to different like aspects of like today modern politics, and it's just extremely like well written in that regard. And throughout reading this book, I had a smile on my face, except some scenes, because some scenes get absolutely like fucked. I don't, they are really like, I won't say gory, but you are like, what? It did that? It said that? You will be like that. And I really enjoyed this book. The 3 books that I read this month weren't really a big read. They were all like about 100 pages. Best thing I can tell you is just go read the book, and even if you have kids, just read it with them. They'll have a lot of fun. It's written like a kid's story, but it's actually, I am 14 and this is deep kind of stuff. I don't really have much to say about this book, other than like I don't really have stuff that I don't like about this book, because I think overall it's a very good package. All I can say is it was a very, very fun read. And for the tier list, again, I almost forgot that I was doing a tier list. For the tier list, I will put this one in S tier because I really liked it. Last but not least, the last book I read this month was The Stranger by Albert Camus. After reading Animal Farm, I wasn't really feeling like reading all month, so I barely was able to finish it. Like, I actually finished it yesterday, like according to the day I'm recording. So I was barely able to finish it because I just didn't feel like reading. But I don't know if it's just about Albert Camus, but this one threw me for a loop as well. Like, this book, it's basically a story of like guy, the stranger, and throughout the story, again, I will try my best to give you no spoilers, but while watching my videos, your best option is, let's wait for the bike to pass. That's not your best option. While watching my videos, your best option is to read the books first and then come for my review. Or if you don't plan to read them, just stay, because I am very unhinged. I really don't know when I'll spoil it for you. This book is about a stranger, a person who is very indifferent. Indifferent isn't the right word. Again, I have a very hard time finding the right words to explain books. My vocabulary is not the best thing out there. Throughout the book, the guy in the book that the story is about, I wasn't really able to crack him, or like his personality or what he was thinking. It was always a surprise when actions happened in this book. Like, there are some scenes, or some written scenes, there are some like areas in this book where you're just like extremely shocked. Like, it has the same shock factor as like the myth of Sisyphus, basically. and some scenes you are just absolutely shocked and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? And that character, even though it feels so shallow, it feels so straightforward, but that character is still very, very well written, and that is something that is very commendable, to write a character like that but still make it compelling. If I'm being fair with you, I won't really tell you that I understood this book like a lot. I still don't really understand this book because I haven't really had time to think about it that much since I finished it just yesterday. So I won't really come on here and pretend that I understand this book or like I know what I'm talking about, because I really don't. This book is a kind of a mystery to me right now. I really need time to think about it. Maybe in the next month's video, when I have had more time to think about it, I might give you another review about this book, because the character in this book and what the heck it's actually about. I mean, I know what's it about. It's about, it explores the same theory of absurd that Albert Camus wrote in The Myth of Sisyphus, and it explores it further, but I don't quite understand it. I might be like very dumb here, and you guys might understand. If you do, and if you have read this book, please tell me what the heck this book is about, and explain to me a bit, because I genuinely don't really understand it that well. But if you don't really care about understanding the book that well, I mean, if I say it out loud now, that seems pretty dumb, that why would you read a book if you don't understand it? But if you don't really care about understanding it on a deep level, or like you want to, by this video, you are maybe inspired to give it a try and to see if you understand it, I would recommend that you... Okay, I just threw the book down. Give me a second. Yeah. I would say that you should read these two books. First, you should read The Myth of Sisyphus, and then you should read The Stranger. You might be able to understand it better. And again, if you do understand it, I would love to talk about it, because the premise of this book is really interesting. While reading the book, I was extremely interested as well. The book in itself, again, if you don't want to go into the deeper meaning, is very, very interesting and has a very, very fun end, and some parts are very good as well. It basically reads like a thriller, or like yeah. If you have ever read James Patterson, this reads like that, one of his books, but it has something inside of it. It has more depth to it that I'm failing to understand right now. For the tier list of this book, I'm not really sure if I should even give it a tier list, because I, again, quite not really understand, because I don't really understand it. But I will still give it a tier list rating based on how I enjoyed reading it while I was reading it, and that would be A. This would also go in A, or nah, this will go on B. Yeah, I'll put this in B. That might be blasphemous to some people if they really like Albert Camus, but someday I will read this book again, and maybe that time I understand it better, and I will sure to give it like a better rating, and I'll redeem myself for it. So that pretty much concludes this month's book review, and what good timing, because the sun is just coming up. A really nice morning indeed. Let me know what you thought about the video, and I would really appreciate if you guys could tell me how I could improve these videos for you. And also I would love to know why you watch my videos. Do you watch them to genuinely get book reviews or book recommendations, or do you watch them just to watch them for entertainment purposes, if I am entertaining at all even? But yeah, do let me know, and let me know how I can improve the videos, and what would you like to see me do more. Also, I have not forgotten about the book club. Even if nobody reads it, I am going to be really stubborn and continue doing it, because maybe one day some of you will read it with me. So for the next month's March book club books that we are going to read, first is going to be Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I have had this book for a long time, and I was putting it off because I know I'm going to enjoy reading this, but we are going to read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Second book that we are going to read is Notes from the Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I learned to pronounce that name. And the third book that we are going to read is Crime and Punishment, again by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's going to be mostly Marcus Aurelius month and Dostoevsky's month. I am also listening to the three-body problem. I don't really quite... I won't say anything about it. I will refrain from saying anything about it because I have very jumbled up thoughts about the three-body problem, and I might or might not talk about it next month when I complete it in March. But the main three books that we are going to read are these three that I just showed you: Crime and Punishment, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and Notes from the Underground. Both of these are by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I hope this time some of you read with me. Even if you don't, that's fine, that's okay. Just if you watch my videos, if you watched it all the way through, I really appreciate you guys, and thank you so much. I will post again if I have another wacky idea or I'm just feeling like posting. Bye bye.